Yo, peace was good. Welcome to the installment of Introduction. The artist that I'll be talking about today is Killah Priest. Killah Priest, who's a Wu affiliated MC. He's part of the Horseman, which consists of Cannabis, Killah Priest himself, Rascats at one point, but he left the group a couple years ago, and Corrupt of Dog Pound fame. You gotta start Horseman, Sons of Man, The Last Future, which was it was him and Killah Priest and I want to say Hellraiser, which was like a duo, and Supreme doing all the beats and shit like that. Maccabees, Black Market Militia. The Maccabees. I could go on and on and on with Killah Priest because he's in so many groups. But anyways, his how he got started was back in the early 90s, particularly around 93, 94. His first appearance on Wax that the world know was actually on the Gravediggers' first album, 6 Feet Deep, which is an album that I had to do a review on eventually. He was featured on 2 songs. The 2 songs are Diary of a Madman, which was a single, which is what people was introduced to Killah Priest, as well as Shabazz the Disciple, another dope MC too. And he was also featured on the song Graveyard Chamber off that album. That song right there, oh my god, I love that joint right there. He had a line where he said, I'll dig through your chest like a jar of Vaseline. The way he said that was so grimy. He was just like, oh my god. But anyways, and then fast forward to 1995, he was featured on Jezus' second album, Liquid Swords, on the single The Fourth Chamber, which they have a video for. Dope single, dope song, dope video as well. And he also had a solo track on the last song of the album called Bible, which is the acronym for Basic Instructions Before Leaving Earth. And when people heard that song, people went beyond bonkers, like bananas. Had a lot of critical acclaim. It was very different from what people was used to, because you gotta remember, back in the early 90s, it was all about the whole 5% Nation, the Pan-Africanism into hip hop, where he kind of went completely different. With the whole Christian, well, not, I wouldn't say Christian, but like the whole Hebrew Israelite, views, but he had some 5% views as well too, but more in the Hebrew Israelites, and that was way too much for people, because you already had a group called Blood of Abraham out of Cali that was signed to Eazy-E's Ruthless Records and stuff like that. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. And then in 1996, him and RZA got into as well as Shabazz the Disciple, they kind of had they got into a heated, I guess a heated argument. They kind of butted heads. I guess it was over creative differences or money and stuff like that. And that's when he cut ties with him. And then now I'm gonna get into how I got my introduction to Killah Priest. All right, how I got introduced to Killah Priest was actually back in the late 90s, or particularly 1999, was when Killah Priest. I actually went to go see the movie Ghost Dog with my mom at Sunrise Cinema, which is in Queens, borderline Long Island, Valley Stream. For all my Queens heads that know about Sunrise Cinema, which closes doors, which I didn't even know. I didn't know that until recently, but it closed on its doors anyway. But that shit was mad. It was run down anyways. It wasn't the best movie theater in the world, but it was the closest one, and it's what we could, what we had. You know what I'm saying? But I had good memories there too. But anyways, I'm getting off topic. And I went to go see Ghost Dog with my mom's, because at that time, back in '99, I wasn't really listening to a lot of hip hop. I was listening to a lot more a lot of '80s music, and because I didn't like the way hip hop was going at that time. I think I mentioned that before. wasn't feeling the whole Rockefeller Rough Riders sound that was going Cash Money. I just wasn't digging that shit. But anything Wu-Tang affiliated or Def Squad affiliated, I was all on flies on shit. No pun intended. But anyways, you know, I knew RZA had something to do with the movie. You know, he did the score of the movie, and I was like, yo, hell yeah, I definitely gotta go check that movie out. So I checked it out, and there was a scene. If you guys seen the movie Ghost Dog, there was a scene like in the beginning of the movie where he pretty much when he stole the Lexus to do his first hit, whatever, to kill one of the mob members and shit, like one of the maid bosses, and throughout him driving through Jersey City, he played the song From Then Till Now, which was featured on his Heavy Mental album, which I'll get into in a little bit. And I was like, yo, that shit is tough. That shit is dope. I was like, I always wondered who that was, and I didn't know who it was until like years later. And then you know, and then I remember back into fast forward to 2000. You know, that was the time when he dropped what's that album, View from Masada, which I did a review on that album, and I hated that album. I'll get into it in a little bit. But he had dropped a single, What's Part of the Game, with Razzcash, which they had a video for. Cause I remember that song being played on Rap City with when Big Ticket was running that show and stuff. When he was the host of of that show at the time. You know, I missed that day. I missed those times. But anyways, and then fast forward to, I want to say 2002. Going to 2003, I think it was like the Christmas of 2002 is when I finally got my hands on Killah Priest's Heavy Mental album. And when I first heard that album, I went crazy. The album just had it just blew my mind. Like, I mean, that album is an underground classic. It's a hip hop classic in my opinion. Just because how original it was, you know, it definitely had the Wu feel to it, but it was different. Just like some of the shit they was talking about, you know, he had like that whole like I say, he had the whole religious overtones, which kind of set him back because, you know, as far as the masses, because a lot of people, you know, they don't like that whole preachy appeal to it. Which, in my opinion, I never felt his stuff as preachy. He's just telling stories, you know what I mean? And it, like, just like in a biblical, I guess, way of, I don't know, in a more religious, biblical, I don't know if that makes sense, but he just has his way of telling stories, and he's a dope storyteller. I mean, he has songs like Cross My Heart, which was played in which was, no, was it? No, I'm sorry, One Step, excuse me, the song One Step, that played in the background, which was a single as well. You had songs like Heavy Mental, which was pretty dope, where he's just like I forgot I think it was called like Guglu. I forgot the name of it. It's a flute that the Aborigines in Australia uses. Where they use the flute and stuff like that to do the signal and stuff like that. Well, throughout the whole song, he's using that, and he's doing like kind of like a spoken word type of song in a sense, and I think that was pretty dope. He had songs like High Explosives, Tai Chi, Science Projects, where you know, where he talks about how like people that live in the projects are the mices, or pretty much like the lab rats in the, you know, the government or the scientists, like how to, you know, people that live in the projects are treated like science projects, and it's just so deep how he talks about that. It's pretty dope, and especially the way ahead of his time, you know, especially for 1998, you know what I mean? And you know, and then I really love that album. I have to do a review on that album, which I will do eventually. And then eventually I got into View from Masada, his second album, and that album I hated so much. It was just so horrible. I did a review on that album to give you guys my view on that album. That album, I just wasn't digging that album at all. And it's funny too, because he did an interview a while back, maybe like 2-3 years ago, where he kind of broke down some of the albums, and you know, he actually talked about how, you know, when he was doing that album, he somewhat didn't have creative control as far as like the production. Like he had creative control as far as the lyricism, like as far as the lyrics and the content. It was just a production that he didn't have creative control. Um, yeah, he didn't have creative control. Because he said like the A&R of the record label he was with MCA Records. He did stuff for like Foxy Brown, AZ. I forgot the name of the artist that he collaborated, but Foxy Brown was definitely one of the artists that he worked with, and you could kind of tell like the you could tell like like the creative control of that album just wasn't like there. It wasn't Killah Priest. You know what I mean? He kind of had a compromise in a sense, and he talks about that, and you could definitely tell. He had a song in that album where he was trying to rap like Bone Thugs and Harmony, and I'm like, yo, what the fuck? Like it was just like out of it wasn't Killah Priest. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? But that album was actually important because the album was actually like one of Just Blaze's first placements in hip hop, because I mean he did stuff with a Buckshot off of the BDI Thug album, which I did a review on, which was okay, it wasn't the best, but he produced like half the album, and that was pretty much got him out there. And then he did some stuff with Jay-Z on the Dynasty album, and then the rest is history. But yeah, the View from Masada, I just wasn't too fond of the album. And then fast forward to 2001, he dropped Priesthood, which I did a review on. That album was a slight improvement compared to View from Masada. Wasn't the best album, but it was a lot better compared to View from Masada. That it's funny too because that album just came out of nowhere. It was just like more like an under the radar type of album. There was no from what I understand, there was no promotion on the album. It just came out of nowhere. It was just like felt like more like a street album in a sense. You know what I mean? It was like an album that it was very hard to find in stores. Even to this day, it's hard to find in stores. I have the album. I did a review on that. Definitely check that out when you get a chance. But yeah, like I said, it was somewhat of an improvement, but not his best. But then, fast forward to 2003, he came out with Black August. And to me, with Black August, it was like his comeback album. He kind of reinvented himself with that album. His ear for beats gotten a lot better over the years compared to View from Masada and Priesthood. You know what I mean? That album, Black August, like I said, another album I don't think had a lot of promotion, but like I said, that album just had some. Oh my god! Like he came back. He came back with that album, and I fucking love that album, man. And I have to do a review on that album. Like I said, to me, it was his comeback album. And then he took a few years off as far as his solo stuff. Then he came out with Black Market Militia with Killah Priest himself, Timbo King. I think it's Timbo King. I want to say it's Killah Priest, Timbo King, William Cooper, and Tragedy Gaddafi. That's who makes up of Black Market Militia. Excuse me. And that's another dope album that was pretty dope. But I want to focus more on the solo tracks, on the solo albums. Excuse me. And then in 2007 he came out with The Offering. That was another dope joint right there. Really love that song right there. He had songs like Gun for Gun with Nas. I mean, oh my god, just the chemistry between them two is just out of this world, man. It's just so ill. He had a song called Energy, which was pretty much a Four Horsemen track, which was the Horseman track, which, like I said, was consisted of Razzcast, who's no longer with the group, Killah Priest, Corrupt, and Cannabis. And I'm not the biggest Corrupt fan, but Corrupt, he did his thing on that song. Like, he had the last verse on that song, but he fucking killed that shit right there. That was produced by Fourth Disciple. I mean, he had joints like Melodic Part 2 with Hellraiser, and it was just so ill, man. Like, he had a song called The PJs, Essential. I mean, like I said, Melodic Part 2 with Hellraiser. I mean, just his chemistry with Hellraiser is just so ill, you know what I mean? And I think that was like the last time they worked with each other for a while, because I think they had like a falling out around that time. Like a little bit after that time, he had like little falling out and stuff like that. And then fast forward to 2008, he came out with the album Behind the Stained Glass, which is one of my favorite albums from his discography besides Heavy Mental. Yeah, just simply because it has sentimental value to me, just for the simple fact that, you know, I have a friend, shout out to my dude Jason, you know, his brother died in a car accident, you know, they were all under the influence, and unfortunately, his friend was his so-called friend was behind the wheel, and, you know, he was just going way too fast, and then, you know, he was getting chased by the cops, and then he lost control of the car, and then ended up killing it was 3 people in the car, ended up killing two people in the car, and the guy that was driving, you know, he ended up like surviving and stuff like that, and like, yo, it was a crazy time. But anyways, 2 guys died. I went to the funeral, went to the wake, you know what I'm saying, like stuff like that. And I remember that album being like in heavy rotation. I used to play that album so much, like, so anytime I hear that album, it kind of brings me back to that time, you know what I mean? It's just like, you know, it's just bring back to those kind of like, you know, the dark times at that time, but at the same time, like, you know, it just shows Killah Priest like really like just you know, he's just going in on that album. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Behind the Stained Glass are leftover tracks of The Offering, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about that, but I kind of like Behind the Stained Glass over The Offering. Offering was a dope album, but I feel like Behind the Stained Glass was like a more deeper album compared to Offering. I love the production off the album. It had songs like For Tomorrow, you know, joints like that. That was a pretty dope album right there. There's a video for that song For Tomorrow. It's pretty dope. There's another song he had a video for. The End Is Coming was also a single as well. I mean, Prophets of Man. I mean, that album. Oh my god, like, I need to get my hands on that album. Some of those albums I don't have. Like, I don't have Behind the Stained Glass. I don't have The Offering. But I do have his first 4 albums, which are Heavy Mental, View from Masada, Priesthood, Black August, and I have Elizabeth, which I'll get into in a little bit. And then fast forward to 2009, he dropped a couple of mixtapes. He dropped I Killed the Devil Last Night, The Untold Story of Walter Reed, and The Exorcist albums were all dope. Mixtapes, pretty dope, stuff like that. But I want to get into his next album, which is Elizabeth. Elizabeth, that's definitely one of my favorite albums as well too. It's actually in my top, you know, Killah Priest albums of all time. Besides Heavy Mental, I would have to say Elizabeth would have to be would be like probably like in my second choice of like my favorite Killah Priest albums. I mean, because in that album, that to me was just like his most darkest and his most angriest album. He was just going in on that album. He had songs like Drama, you know, he just went in on that joint. He had a song called Confession Booth, where he talks about him and his beef with like RZA at the time, him and Hellraiser and stuff like that. I mean, pretty dope. He had songs like Be Careful, and just going in on that joint. Shout out to DJ Wool. Him and DJ Wool, that's all I gotta say about that. Definitely type in DJ Wool on YouTube when you guys get a chance. Definitely check it out. I mean, his production is just so fucking dope, man. I mean, he got some heat. He got some heat over there. And then in 2010, he dropped an album called The 3-Day Theory, which was just his 9th album. With that album it was okay. It has some joints, but compared to like Elizabeth and his earlier albums, some of the production was a little bit too polished for me. It was still Killah Priest. It was still dope beats, but it just, for me, the beats were a little bit more polished compared to his earlier stuff. But it's not a bad album. It's not his best album. The production was done by a dude named Count Fifth. I don't know who that is, but yeah. Yeah, like I said, it was a good album, but not his best album in my opinion. Could have been a little bit better, but it's a lot better compared to View from Masada and Priesthood, obviously. But yeah. And then 3 years later, he dropped the Psycho World of Walter Reed, which was I believe it was a double disc album. Yeah, it was a double disc album. That was actually pretty good right there. That was a good album. Again, not his best album in the world, but it was pretty good. It was good to hear another Killah Priest album. He just never goes in on that album right there. You know, he never shies away with what he talks about. He just talks about he has, like I said, his talks about life, but he also has like religious overtones to his albums and stuff like that. So he doesn't shy away from that. So, but yeah, man, he's just such a dope storyteller right there. Pretty dope right there. And then fast forward to this year, he dropped Planets of the Gods, which I didn't hear yet, but I heard good things about it. I'll definitely check that album out. And that's pretty much it with my introduction with Killah Priest. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Have to do more of these more often. I know some of you guys been asking me to do certain artists. I'll get to those eventually. But this is for my nigga Rugod, of Zilla Nation, my boy Rugod, Ruhan. You know what I mean? He asked me to do Killah Priest, cause that's actually one of his biggest one of his favorite artists, like his biggest like influence as far as hip hop. He's an MC, and then Killah Priest is definitely one of his biggest influences and stuff like that. And when you hear his stuff, you could definitely tell. You know what I mean? So that was for you, my dude. But yeah, that's pretty much it, folks. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Stay tuned for more videos. Thank you guys for the love, for all the beat videos I've done, the songs that I've done. Shout out to all the people that showed love for the Dark Axe joints. Definitely stay tuned for more joints in the near future. Got some joints, man. By the way, I will be doing an EP, like an EP with MC Doja. Definitely stay tuned for that. And when you finish recording that, I'll post the whole thing on YouTube. Definitely check it out, and definitely stay tuned for that. But that's pretty much it, folks. Stay tuned for more. Peace.